Hello Creative Souls, thank you for joining me for my second video in Kumihimo. Last week we braided a braid with beads, and this week I'm going to show you how to make that same braided braid into a pretty little bracelet. So I'm going to show you how to do two wire techniques to add cones and a clasp to your piece. I'm also going to add two Swarovski bicones to the end to finish the length. Usually when I make one of these Kumihimo pieces, I know exactly what finished length I need for the beaded section. I know what toggle or clasp I'm going to use. I know what cones I'm going to use, so it's much easier to figure out the beaded portion, but this time we don't have that, so I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot and measure using an easy sizer bracelet. This week I'm modeling my tiger eye gilded goddess. She is a multicolored tiger eye goddess, and she has a hematite fan. You can find kits and more of my jewelry at cherealdesigns.com. And for all my videos, you can find me on YouTube, Cheryl Weatherford, Chereal Designs. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Chereal Designs Jewelry, Facebook at Chereal Designs, LLC. And next week, join me again. We're going to make earrings, and I'll go over the wire technique that we are going to use today. All right, friends, let's start creating. So what you're going to need this week for tools are, you're going to need two cones. I have a 22 gauge piece of wire that is half hard and round, two 4mm Swarovski bicones that match your piece, one eye pin, a piece of fire line. I took a yard and put a beading needle in the middle, your round nose pliers, nylon jaw pliers if you have them, wire cutters, chain nose pliers, a flexible measuring tape, and some scissors. So to begin, I just used fire line and I pierced my braid 1/4 of an inch from the beadwork. And what I did was I pierced my fire line through with two pieces of thread still in my needle. And I pierced through, I wound around the braid, I stuck through again, I wound around, I made little knots just as you do sewing. And now that I've terminated both ends, I can start my connections. So the first one I'll show you is how to connect the eye pin. So you're going to lay your eye pin right where the beads start. So to do this, I'm taking my non-dominant hand and I'm pinching the eye pin, the braid together. I've also, before I started, I made sure my eye pin was completely closed by using my chain nose pliers on top of the pad of my finger, and I grabbed one end of the loop and pushed it down toward my finger to make sure it was closed. So going back to laying that eye pin right on top of your braid, you can then take your piece of fire line, make a knot in the end, lay down your eye pin, and we're going to put our needle through the eye pin and through the braid. Stick this through, and before you pull all the way to the end, put your needle inside your loop and pull. That creates your first knot. If you need to direct your eye pin upward, this is the wire that we're going to use to tighten down the end. Wrap around the eye pin and the braid and stick your needle back through the eye pin loop and the braid. Pull that through and make another knot by putting your needle through the loop. before you pull tight. Do this a couple more times and make sure that you're sticking your needle back through that eye pin because that's what's going to hold everything. Okay, when you get to the end, you can make a knot by catching threads, part of that braid again if you can. Pull through and put your needle through the last loop. Then you can use your scissors to trim off the ends of your fire line. So now that you have your eye pin securely attached, you can pull on it to make sure it's attached. You're going to slip on your cone next, and then your Swarovski bicone. And a trick I like to do to make sure that everything is tight, the beadwork inside of my cone, so I'm going to put my round nose pliers and pull up with my nylon jaws, or I could also use my chain nose pliers, but I'm going to pull that up and push down with this hand while I'm pulling up with the other, and that makes my beadwork nice and tight. My next step that we'll go over next week is to add my clasp. So before I started my work, I told you about the inside diameter of a piece and how to measure this. So what I did without the cone on is I formed my piece into a bracelet, and I took my measuring device here and I put one end onto the 0, and then I took the measuring tape and went inside the inside diameter of this piece, and I found the end. So I measured from 0 to the middle, and that was about 2.5 inches. So what does this all mean, inside diameter versus outside diameter? Well, if I were to just measure this bracelet, I wanted it to be 7 inches. If I measure this linearly, it says it's about 6.5 inches. But this braid is very thick, and that affects the circle on the inside diameter. So what I did was I made it into a circle. I measured the inside of the diameter from the end of the thread to the middle, and it was about 2.5 inches. So then I came over here. Hard to see. What it says is I wanted a 7-inch bracelet in the end. I took away the 4.5 inches for the inside diameter. That left me with 2.5 inches. I then measured my cones, which came out to be 1 inch a piece. So I took away the 2, and then I still had that extra 1/2 inch that I needed to fill. So what I chose are my 4mm Swarovski bicones, and I took another piece where I measured how much it takes me to wrap one of those wire connections, and I came up with the other half. So when you're making your pieces, make sure you not only accommodate for how long it is, but how much of the inside diameter. This goes for necklaces and how it hangs on people, or how to make a bracelet. So for my second side, I'm going to need that 22 gauge wire, half hard round, and this is a 3-inch piece, which is perfect for beginners. So to straighten my wire, I'm going to grab the end with my chain nose pliers and take my nylon straighteners and glide those straighteners across the wire. Now I'm going to go about 2/3 into the wire there, and I'm going to pierce through my Kumihimo braid with the wire. And this is right underneath the fire line. Then I'm going to take my wire and just with my fingers I'm going to make a U, and above where my thread ends I'm going to gently with my fingers cross those two wires and take my chain nose plier and lay this little tiny wire on top of the longer one. I'm going to wind that around 3 times. Doesn't have to be pretty because it's going to hide underneath of our cone. So I can clip that excess wire. Now it's time for me to do the same as the other side. We're going to add our cone and then our Swarovski crystal. This clasp is a base metal blue moon clasp that came with a really small loop for the other side. It's too small for a bracelet, it will just be frustrating to put on. So for this side, I'm going to start inside my plier a little bit more to make a bigger loop that'll be much easier to put on. Go around once, go around the plier twice. That makes a sturdier connection to your lobster clasp. And same thing. And now you have a nice finished bracelet. A moment of truth with our easy bracelet sizer. It is exactly a 7-inch bracelet. So bravo! Thank you so much for gaining another skill with me at Chereal Designs. Please share my work if you like what I do here, and join me next week where we are going to learn how to do simple drop earrings. We're going to take an eye pin and we're going to make a dangle kind of earring. And then we're also going to make a wire link using a top drilled bead. So something that hangs like a teardrop. All right, I can't wait to see you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.